Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harrison. I read, review and discuss fantasy and science fiction books. Today I have a review for you on Blood Rain by Ezra Payne. This is a brand new release. It came out as of time of recording this like 2 days ago. It is a fantasy debut from Ezra. It's his first time writing a book. Ezra and I have actually already had a chat because we had, I filmed an interview with him, which is going to be going up on Thursday, that talks all about the process of writing this book and kind of his philosophy when it comes to writing. A really, really interesting chap. And I think that chat really inspired me to carry on and maybe put a bit more focus on my own writing. Because I felt like, as we were chatting, I was like, I've got so many good ideas that I want to share. And he said that was actually like the thing that made him start writing, was to go, I've just got all these story ideas and I have to share them. And having read his first novel, his debut novel, Blood Rain, I am really excited by this world, these characters and these ideas. Let's give you a little bit of a I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of what the book's about, give you a bit of a view on some of the main characters, and then kind of give you my overall impressions. So first off, this book is a desert fantasy. It is lots of scenes take place outside of the desert, so there's some scenes in like port towns, there's some scenes in the woods, there's a lot of sections in the woods, but the main kind of the main location is a city called Balkar, which is in the center of the desert. Now, Balkar is at the time the book starts, it is a slave camp essentially, where humans are being enslaved to build this kind of amazing incredible city by a race of like 10 to 12 foot tall lizard people called Hexets. You can see them on the cover. They're kind of in the background here behind the main character. So the Hexets are these kind of big bestial lizard men, and you get the sense that the camp is not the greatest place to live. One of the characters that you follow earlier on is called Sar. She's a human who has been altered by eating this kind of special or magical fruit, which has made her stronger and much, much taller. That she's described, like, every time you see her, she's described as being like taller than everyone else in the room and like more muscular and more powerful and terrifying, and she's like covered in tattoos of all the like feats of strength that she's completed. Really, really interesting character. We'll come back to her in characters. Sar is a human, but she worked with the Hexets to guard the human slaves. There is then basically the human armies of the other cities of the world come to Balkar, and they're like, yeah, we won't stand for this slavery stuff, and you're kidnapping our citizens and turning them into slaves. And then something big and magical happens, and essentially the Hexets are forced to abandon the city of Balkar, and multiple of the most powerful Hexets are given over to these kings, one kind of per king, to be like, they're called a war blade. So you think of like a kind of a mix between like an advisor and a bodyguard and a general, you know, and they go willingly due to the magical thing that takes place that I don't want to spoil for you guys, because, you know, I think you should read this book and get to these cool story moments. What happens then is that we follow first off Sar, and then a character that she meets called Noxilis, and then a few other characters that kind of join the crew and befriend San Noctilis. And we follow them over quite a long period of time. So it's actually like almost 50 years, I think, from chapter 1 to the final chapter. In fact, let's have a look. Let's have a look at the final chapter, because it does actually say the year. So it's over 50 years. It's 54 years in total across the entire book. I don't feel like you are missing anything. But the book is very, very fast paced. So if you are the kind of fantasy reader who is explicitly not really interested in fast paced books, and you are very much like, let's spend an entire book walking from one place to another, let's sit down and smell the roses, let's dive deep into our characters and our world and what, in the Wheel of Time, Timothy Burbage, he reviewed book 1 of the Wheel of Time, Either World, and he actually talked about how the characters don't leave their hometown on their big quest for over 100 pages. And if you're the kind of person who hears that and goes, wow, I want to read this book, then Blood Rain probably isn't for you, because it does not ever rest on its laurels. It does not ever slow down to the point where there will be like a lot of time taken on character meetings and things like that. This book is very, very fast paced, and I think that for many fantasy readers who are into the kind of more traditional, slower paced things like Janny Wirtz or Robert Jordan, and certain parts of Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson, for example. I think most of his other books are quite fast paced, but Stormlight Archive can be quite slow, especially The Way of Kings. I would say the first third of that book took a real long time to grab me. But this book is quite fast. I wouldn't even say quite fast, actually. I would probably say that this is the fastest paced fantasy book I've ever read. That is in some ways to its detriment. So as I said earlier, I think that many readers who are exclusively interested in fantasy books that take their time, that are very, very long, that will show you every day of a journey through a town, or like there's this chapter in, there's multiple chapters in fact in Eye of the World about Matt and Rand being chased essentially along a road, and it's a long road. There are lots of towns and farms that they stop at, but we spend a lot of time on that road. If in Blood Rain that sequence wouldn't be one chapter, that sequence would probably just be referred to and not actually shown on page. So you'll probably know already by my description there whether this book is for you or not. And when I say that it in some ways suffers for that fast pacing, and that's probably my major detractor with this book. There are a couple of scenes in the book specifically that I was like, they were over in a flash, and I just wanted to spend more time in that scene. So, for example, at around the halfway point, a major character is killed, and I'm reading that chapter, and they go from like joining the fight to being dead in like 2 pages. And I just wanted more from that. I wanted something a bit more climactic. I wanted something a bit more epic that was kind of befit that character. It does a really interesting thing though, where it teaches you that no characters are safe, which I think is important in a fantasy like this one. There are action scenes much later in the book that are much longer and more detailed, and I do think that it shows that Ezra is improving as he goes through the book. I really enjoyed the beginning and I really enjoyed the end of the book, but throughout the middle a lot of the time I was thinking like, this is good, I like the pace, but in fact I like the pace is probably wrong. I did not dislike the pace, if that makes sense, but a lot of the time I was like, this could have basically been a trilogy. Like, this book could have been a trilogy. And in the hands of many epic fantasy authors, someone like Brandon Sanderson, this would have been at least a duology or trilogy of books. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the pace of this book. Like, I enjoyed it the whole way through. I was never reading through this like begrudgingly. So I signed up to receive this physical arc in exchange for posting an honest review, which is what I'm doing here. But also just to post some kind of content around the book for the indie book tour. And I filmed days ago, we filmed last week, my interview with Ezra, which is my content for the tour. So I read this purely for fun, for enjoyment, and not kind of out of obligation because I had to post something, if that makes sense. And the people that I would really recommend this book to are people who maybe you've read, 2 Wheel of Time books back to back, or you've just read something that's incredibly slow and deep, purple prose, something like Curse of the Mistwraith from last year that I didn't really enjoy. If you have read something like that and you really need a break, you want something that is brisk, that is really frenetic, with some excellent action scenes, some really good characters, and a lot of potential. That's how I would really just put. I think that when I was thinking about the main words I would use to describe this, I would say lost potential is probably the main descriptor. Fast pace, lots of potential. This is fantastic for a debut author, and I'm not going to sit down and tell you guys that I could write a better book, because I absolutely could not. It's very hard for me as a critic sometimes to criticise a book and say like, oh, I would have preferred these elements done better, because really I know I can't write a better book than this. I've never written a book. This book is genuinely, the craft of the book is really well done. The thing that I also like is that Ezra has put in tons of illustrations, and I didn't mention this in the interview and I forgot to mention it, and we were talking after the interview finished filming, and I was like, oh, I'm so annoyed that I forgot to mention how good I'm trying to find one that isn't spoilery. Okay, so look at this fantastic illustration. Like, Ezra didn't need to put this in the book. He didn't need to put in illustrations. And one of the things that I really like about indie fantasy is that when you want to do stuff like that, you should just do it. Like, I've read so many indie fantasy books, and like, then you look at something like, say for example, Stormlight Archive, right? That's got a lot of illustrations in it, and I feel like that's genuinely a really important, and really cool thing to give to your readers is these like lovely illustrations. So massive kudos to Ezra for that. And yeah, if you're writing an indie book right now, pay some artists and get some illustrations. Writing an indie book isn't cheap. It's going to cost you a lot of money. But me personally, I really appreciate the extra illustrations in there, not just like a map or like a cover and maybe a piece of artwork at the end of the book or the middle. There's illustrations like all the way through for all the biggest scenes. And I really, really appreciated that. I think that makes the book, as well as this like lovely hardcover, it makes it feel like a premium experience. It levels you. I mean, it puts you on the level with people like Jay Kristoff, who puts a lot of illustrations in his books. Brandon Sanderson put a lot of illustrations in Stormlight Archive. It's a great way to level up your book, in my opinion. Anyway, so yeah, we've talked about things kind of out of order, actually, because I haven't talked about characters as much as I was originally planning to. So let's go circle back round to that. So hard to pick a favourite character from this book. I really liked Isla, who is the priestess character. I liked how it felt like she was drawn from maybe Ezra's history, because he notes, I mean, we didn't actually get time to talk about this in the interview, but he notes in his author's blurb that he, grew up in a very religious household, but has since, left that religion. And one of the big things that with Isla is her rejection of the religion that she's born and grew up in. And then also kind of how her religion rejects her in a way as well. I feel like her character arc was one of the most interesting ones. There were a couple of points where I was like, oh wow, I really thought she'd be a bit more affected by this thing that happened. But kind of towards the end of the book. However, I think that overall, the character I was like, I want to see more of this character was Isla. I really liked Noxelis as well. As I said, she's kind of the lead, I would say, or the protagonist of the book. I thought that her motivations were really strong with her parents, and I liked her relationship with all the other characters. So like with Sar and Spade and Isla, I felt like they all had a really strong relationship that I really liked. Then the final character was the one I kind of liked the least, I would say, which was Spade. Spade was really interesting. She kind of has like a happy-go-lucky, like Robin Hood's Merry Band of Thieves sort of style as she begins, and then she grows and grows through the book to being more of like she's like kind of like power behind the throne, like almost like a legalized crime lord, or I don't know. She's like a gangster for the crown or something like that. Very, very cool idea. I think that I think Spade is one of those Marmite characters where you some people, she will be their favourite character, and like some people will finish this book and go like, wow, that was one of my favourite fantasy characters I've ever read. She's not my least favourite, not by a country mile, but she was my least favourite in this book. I liked all the Hexit characters. I think Kyria and Arkmar stood out quite a lot. I want to see more of King Econ. I really like that character. And I loved the... in fact, let's just go back to Isla for a second. I really liked the character that Isla spends a lot of time with towards the end of the book. And I really enjoyed the prison escape. I think the prison escape is the coolest action scene in the book. That is the world's incredibly minorest spoiler. But what I'm saying is when you get to that section of the book, just like strap in because it's really cool. So I think that's everything that I wanted to cover with this one. I did end up rating when I was rating this one. So I initially, when I was reading the book and I was about the halfway point, I was thinking that this was about a 4-star reading experience. I was really enjoying it. And then we had, as I was saying, we had that major character death, which I kind of wanted to linger in a bit more. And then there were a few other sequences that felt kind of shortened to the point where I was like, oh, I didn't really feel anything from that because it happened too quickly. And the other honest point is, I know I'm going to be reading Ezra's next book, and he already has improved massively as a writer from the beginning of the book to the end. So I feel like his book 2 is going to be a lot better. And I can't just be like, well, this one's a 5-star now. And I think that I ended up looking at this book as kind of that really strong potential, fantastic debut book. I mean, this is probably on a par with a lot of kind of early fantasy debut stuff. And, you know, yeah, anyway. So I rated this one as a 3-star. The ratings that I give, I'm actually going to record a video about this next week, mostly inspired by this book, just to talk about, you know, how I settle on the ratings that I settle on. And I think that for me, the 3-star is a book that I really enjoyed. It is a book that I do believe has some problems, but the 3-star for me often is like, I could see why this could be a 5-star book or a 1-star book for other people. If I'm looking at a 4-star book, in that case, it feels a bit more definitive that more people would really like it. But if I go down to a 2-star book, that's kind of, I didn't like it, but I could see why somebody else might think like, oh, this is decent, but not amazing. Whereas this was more than decent. This was a great experience that I really enjoyed, and it was genuinely a really good palate cleanser after finishing Howling Dark, because Howling Dark is that first-person narrative. It's very long, it's very melodramatic, it's quite slow-paced across a lot of it, and when you get to something like Blood Rain, which has this fast pace, it has this kind of whimsical feel with some of the characters, but then kind of capped off by the kind of grimdark nature of some of the sequences, and I would say that there are some, I would probably give some trigger warnings for this one. So if you are considering reading this and you might feel like there are some things that could, and you know, there are things in grimdark books that you find triggering, please do reach out, and I'll let you know what those things I consider to be are in this book. But all in all, a great experience. I'm really looking forward to what Ezra writes next. I'm looking forward to hopefully talking to him again on the channel, because, you know, we had a great time with our chat, and maybe we'll be nice to maybe try and buddy read something in the future. Maybe I'll get him on, I don't think I'll get him on the Wheel of Time train with me, but I'm sure there's something that he'll like. And if you would like to see any future content from me, or possibly me and Ezra, I mean, you know, was a nice guy, I'd love to have him back on, if he wants to come on. If you'd like to see any more content from me, please do subscribe to the channel. Every little subscription helps. The channel's actually been growing really slowly for the past few weeks, so I don't like to ask people to subscribe more than just a casual mention, but it would really mean the world to me if you subscribe to the channel, just to, you know, keep the channel on growing the way it has been. And maybe it slowed down because I've been mostly reviewing book 2s, but well, I'm going to review what I want to review. Please do like the video if you've liked it, and drop a comment down below to let me know whether you're planning on reading Blood Rain. It is free on Kindle Unlimited, so there's absolutely no barrier to entry. I'd really recommend reading the first kind of the opening, like 60 pages. You could probably read it in a couple of hours, and that'll tell you whether you will like reading the rest of the book. Thanks so much for watching today's video, and thanks Ezra for sending me this physical copy. And I will speak to you guys tomorrow.